All right, we're back. It's COMP397, Web Game Programming, and it's week 5, lesson 5, part 1. We're talking about assignment number 2. Let's talk about it. So due week 7, so this is class 7 of week 7. That's October 30th by our calculations here in the room, right? And that's like a couple weeks out because you've got all of reading week, right? That most likely no one's going to do anything, right? Typically, people don't do anything. We've also got the week you come back would be week 6. We're going to talk about other things during that week. And then the week after, which is our exam week, week 7, we're going to host a bit of an exam for the first part, a bit of practical, and then we'll see the second piece will be some other teaching that we're going to have to do to prep you guys for the next part, which is going to be the side scroller we're going to build, which is MailPilot. For those people who've already done it on the other side. But we're going to do it with TypeScript and Visual Studio as opposed to things. So it'll be a whole, now for guys who are in my game programming class, and for people familiar with Unity, it's going to be fun, right? Because the great thing is that they can see both projects side by side, right? And see how it flows. There's a totally different flow from a TypeScript perspective or JavaScript and Visual Studio with HTML5 technologies, Canvas, than there is on the Unity side. Totally different flow. But very similar output, to be honest, in terms of what we can do. So you'd be amazed what you can come up with Create.js. So what is this one we're going to do? We're going to do the slot machine program. Let me just kind of skim down here a little bit so you guys can see the whole document. So the idea here is you're going to take JavaScript and web technologies. I said JavaScript, you can obviously use TypeScript. And the slot machine code that I have on GitHub, I'm going to give you that in a second. And the web API of your choice to create an HTML slot machine game. The reason why I said of your choice is because in other iterations of this program, people have used things like 3JS. They've used, because remember, we're doing web game programming. I can try and steer you towards using Create.js because I think it's easy. But you may choose to use something else, like Phaser, or if you want to use something like other technologies, you can certainly do that. I don't recommend it. I think it's going to be just more work for you to do it. This is just very straightforward to do. But some people have done it. I know this in one class I had an example of one of my students who did a 3D slot machine with 3JS, right? So that was kind of interesting that they came up with that. They did it on their own, and they also made it so that instead of 3 reels, they had 5 reels that had multiple betting lines and all kinds of crazy stuff. And they also took 60 hours to do it, right? That's a lot of hours from a project perspective to come up with something, especially when you're working on your own. And then not including all the other schoolwork you got to do and stuff, right? So this isn't that kind of program, all right? This is the kind of program where you're going to get some code, and then you're going to take it and spin it out into a UI. I want you to create a UI with the code I give you. This is the exercise for this one, all right? So you're going to get, so the way it is if you look at what a slot machine would look like, right? So this is your typical slot machine. Now, most of you should know what it is. Who doesn't know? Everyone knows what a slot machine is? Are you good with slot machines? If you haven't never seen it, because there's culturally, sometimes we don't see slot machines in different places, right? You played, okay, you're good. So if some people don't, right? So that's why, even though I brought them up, and to us, it's a common thing. We've seen them before. Sometimes they're not. And so so right now, you have 3 reels, 1, 2, 3, like on the side here, right? And in the old days, they used to be made of wood or metal, right? And they used to literally spin like a wheel, right? They had a gear in the back, and randomly, apparently, right, they would stop at a particular design pattern, right? Now, fruits would be a very common one, and other kinds of symbols. If you match the symbols in 3 of the windows that the reel would stop, then what would end up happening is you get a match, and you would win something depending on how many coins you put into the slot machine. More coins, more winnings, typically, is how it used to go. Over the time, you know, those kind of machines could be defeated by, for example, putting in a coin with string on it. Like, you know, that's how they used to defeat it, because they could, you know, make tricks as long as the slot machine would think that there's a way that the coin is going to go in, you know, and stuff. They would give you credits, and then from there you could win money without even placing your own money, right? Or keep betting until you win money, or you've never really bet anything. And there was other ways to defeat the randomness of the slot machine, because it was a mechanical machine, like this way, right? So they moved away from mechanical machines slowly over time to a digital machine. So most slot machines, even if you see a mechanical look to them in the front, underneath, 9 times out of 10, I would say now 99 times out of 100, there's a computer, right, in the back, and on the back of it, right, like a little, like an i7, some kind of processor with RAM and whatever, that drives the mechanism, if it's a mechanical one, or that produces what looks like to be a very similar approximation or simulation of a slot machine that's mechanical, right? Typically, you have buttons on the front of the slot machine or on the top that allow you to bet, right? And that basically validate user input. So basically, you'd say, okay, I want to bet 5. So you press the 5 button and then press spin, or you pull the one-arm bandit's arm, right? You pull that, you know, the arm of the slot machine, and what it does is it initiates the process, right? That's what the whole thing is. And the way you know you win is inside the middle of the windows here, there's a betting line. So if you notice, this is the betting line of this particular slot machine. This is the one with this one. And if you notice here, you might have more than one betting line in some of them. Some of them are so complex you have multiple betting lines at different angles, right? We're not going to be dealing with those. The ones I want you to think about are the very simple ones for now, okay? So let's take a look. So those are example interfaces, right? And your job is to take the code I give you, right, and translate it into a UI, right, with the knowledge that you've got already so far in TypeScript and Visual Studio. I also didn't ask you for a start screen. I didn't ask you for an end screen yet. None of that's there. So if you wanted to add all those in, those are all potential bonus marks for you to create almost like a complete game for yourself, right? So you get 3 images into the GUI, 1 for each reel of the slot machine that have default an image of, I can spin or blank or something, right? When the GUI initially loads. And then the images and the reels will change every time the user presses the spin button. Just press the spin button, all of a sudden it'll spin, right? Now, when I say change, I don't expect animation, right? Some of you may not be good enough with animating the reels to make sure that those things move. So if you just change out, I would be happy with you just changing out the pictures. I know this is very simple for some of you, right? But for some, and then maybe you want to challenge yourself to make it animate, right? But the idea is that the requirement in the document doesn't ask you to do that. You don't have to make it animate. So all I ask you is just swap out the images so that they appear in the windows with one of the fruits. Or in your case, you may customize your machine to make whatever kind of symbols you want. So if you want, I don't know, Star Wars kind of theme for your slot machine, or you want some kind of World of Warcraft theme for your slot machine, whatever you want, as long as it makes sense, you do something that makes it fun for you, right? So again, the images that appear in the image window should be one of the symbols, and match the randomly generated symbols within your code. And then you will have to connect the functions containing the slot machine code provided, or write your own, to the UI, all right? 2, add a spin button control to your GUI that allows the user to spin the reels of the slot machine each time the user clicks the button. So the user clicks the button, the slot machine's reels, quote unquote, spin. It means just swap out the pictures. You may choose to make, you know, pictures flash for a second, and then that could be a simple effect as well. But we'll look at those options, right? This is where all the action happens with the winning the button, the spin button. Now the spin button is going to check to see if you have enough money, right? If you don't have enough money, you know what they say: no money, no funny, honey, right? So you have to kind of make it so that it's there's enough money in the slot machine, so that way it'll work, just like a real slot machine, right? You're going to add a button control to your UI that allows the user to reset the game, right? So if I want to start the game over, and a button control to the UI that allows the user to quit the game, right? So now this is funny because on the web, quitting the game from a web interface, Chrome may stop you from doing so. So I'm also going to allow things like if you wanted to go to an end screen. So if you use a state machine to go to the end screen, as an example, I would allow that, or some other website would be fine too. If you went to, like, you know, another web link that said, "Thank you for playing," you know, one of those things, that would be acceptable. Something that would end the game or take you away from the game is fine, right? You add labels or other appropriate controls that display the user's money, the jackpot, and the bet. All right, so those things got to be fed back to the user so that he knows how he's doing, right? And then ensure that when the user enters a bet amount in the bet entry control, whatever that is, that the program checks or validates if he has enough money. So, example, you can't bet 500 if he only has 100 bucks, right? Or 100 credits. He has to check to see if he's got enough. If the user doesn't have enough money to make his bet, gray out or disable the spin button control to prevent him from playing the game. right? 7, include conditions that allow the player to potentially win the jackpot, right? You can use the example code provided for your odds, which I'm going to show you in a second. Reflect the jackpot win by displaying a special message, like you won, you know, or some kind of sound. 8, add a slot machine graphic object that gives the interface the look and feel of a slot machine. So far, we're just talking about buttons and images flashing or moving, right? We haven't talked about it looking like a slot machine. So I want you to do that. I want you to kind of put together a slot machine graphic. And we'll start doing that today together in class, right? So we can gather our materials, right? Okay, that's it really for the game, right? The requirements. 9, include internal documentation as before. 10, external document is very similar to what we had before with a few extra things. For example, I'm asking you for an interface sketch, which I didn't require before, some screen descriptions or screenshots, some scoring information, how do you score, and an art multimedia index for this one. So this is 12 marks, right? 12 out of 56. Share your files on GitHub and make sure it's live. All right, those are the 2 things that you get marks for. Those are 4 marks. Okay, optional game features to get extra points, right? The slot machine activates sound clips each time the spin button is pressed. It's pretty simple. Click the button, make a sound, right? Created an animation effect for the reels when the spin button is pressed, right? So some kind of animation, that's bonus. Include additional reels. Now this is challenging, maybe too challenging for some of you. 5 reels instead of 3. That means different code in the back end too. You may not have time to do this one. Some people are really quick coding, or they can do it. That's great, but to keep consistent, that's a hard one. Include additional quote unquote bet lines. Each example of primary and 2 secondary bet lines, as well as diagonal bet lines. There's all kinds of stuff you can do to make it your own kind of slot machine, right? Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. Any questions around this so far, right? So it's kind of a straightforward little project. It's more of a puzzle game, though, in that, you know, you have to click the buttons, and the computer, your code on the back end dictates whether the person wins or not, right? There is no traditional arcade-style motion or anything like that. This is to, you know, again, a test to see, can you link, you know, your back-end code with a front-end UI that you're going to build, okay? Again, I would say object-oriented design is highly encouraged. So if you make label classes like we already have, button classes like we already have, and use that template that we used from last week, which, by the way, I'm going to build on this week, right? You're going to be more successful than if you do everything by hand. If you bomb everything by hand, you're going to have lots of trouble. It's going to take you a long time, and it may not work right, okay? So I would highly encourage using a state machine and, you know, creating an, you know, that kind of object-oriented approach, you know, using that object-oriented approach to create your project. It'll save you time. Okay. Functional approach may not be the best approach in this particular case, all I'm saying. Okay, let's take a look at some other, some examples of the code. So first of all, I'm going to go up online, sorry. Let's take a look at where I'm talking about for this online code. So if I go to GitHub, and if I look at Centennial, we should have I should have a copy of some repositories. If I go slot machine, there it is, Centennial. If you go to Centennial College /slot machine, this is very basic JavaScript that you get. Okay, so all you get is some JavaScript code. Look, there's no TypeScript attached to this at all, right? And that's what the challenge, part of the challenge is. Make this, attach it, create a JavaScript project from this, or a TypeScript project. And again, if you notice, it's very basic. There's no, all you get is a bit of jQuery and your main.js file. There's no TypeScript here at all, right? So this is the part of the challenge, okay? So what does it look like physically? Let's make sure that I can get there. So here we're in Windows 10, and I'm going to pull up Visual Studio here, and let's pull up one of the, I might have to reduce the size of this again, because just what happens in my life, where we have Microsoft playing games with me again. Okay. All right, that's pretty big. Let's go back and change this thing. One day my virtual machine, I'll learn how to use it properly, so that way, you know, it doesn't rescale like the way it does. All right. So I have a project. Let me actually close this down for a second. I have a previous project here that I save all my projects that I use called Slot Machine, and I want to preview the code that I got here, because it's important for us to take a look and see what I've got. So that, you know, you see the original project, and we'll talk about taking it further, right? So I got a few iterations of this thing, right? So here's the original code. So if I was to run this code, what would it look like, kind of thing, okay? So let's take a look. You can also, I recommend you fork this thing in your own GitHub right now, since you have, so you have the code, right? Or you download it, whatever you choose to do. But I want to show you this. So this is the base code, okay? So main.js, we'll go over it in a second. But this is brutal, okay? So when I say brutal, I mean like it is like bargain basement. This is a, you know, some serious, you know, just, you know, there's no styling to this thing. Imagine if some, you know, you got the base code and this is what you got, okay? So I want you to turn this, take a look. Here's your jackpot, right? Into a working game. How do you do that? So your jackpot's 500 bucks, your player money's 1,000, your turn is 0, your wins. There's some stats for you, right? My bet is 10. I click the button, spin, blank, banana, grapes. You lost, right? Let's try it again. Spin, blank, cherry, banana. I lost again. Let's spin a couple more times. And I won that one. I won that one. But you can see that for the most part, I lose, right? If I keep spinning enough times, or if I change my bet ratio, like right now I have $870. If I change this to like, let's say 100 bucks, right? And I'll lose more often and a lot more money at once. I'll get to the point where I have no more money left. If I can't bet, like for example, I want to bet 100 and I got $70 left, it'll say, man, you don't have enough money to place the bet, right? I don't want these pop-ups in your game. Your game is a UI. This is not a UI. This is a web page, right? That's what this is, right? Okay, so let's bet all my money. So let's bet 70 bucks and see what happens here. Spin. Got no money. I lost. And if I try and spin again, it's going to pop up and say, hey, you ran out of money. Do you want to play again? If I press OK, it's going to reset everything back to the way it was. Okay. So that's really how it does. That's really it in a nutshell. If I look at the back-end code really quickly, so let me just stop debugging here, and I'll look at the code. If I look at main.js, that's all it is. I've got a bunch of global variables that hold this information, right? Your player money, your jackpot, all this kind of stuff. I've even got a little bit of jQuery that I use to change the HTML, the inner HTML, to produce where this stuff goes. And down here is where all the lovely action happens. Let me just reduce the size here so you can see it more succinctly. I've got a function called reset fruit tally, which is I keep a tally of all the fruits. But down in here, when I spin the reels, I have this spin the reel function that has a case statement that goes through and basically says, well, depending on what I spun, I can choose a blank, a grapes, a banana, an orange, blah, blah. So this is all done for you. Now, what I want you to do is you could use this code or discard it or use it as an example, but this kind of provides the odds. So I kind of say, well, I want to check, I created a check range function that basically says, I want you to take the number from 1 to 27. If it lands 1 to 27, I want you to, you know, spin the outcome in this outcome array, right? That's what I'm putting it into, right? And at the end of the day, when it comes down to it, depending on what you spin, there's a lower and lower probability that you'll actually get a 7 or whatever, and then really, really low that you'll actually to check it to see if you win. So here's where how I check. I say if there's no blanks, right? If there's one blank in your window, you're lost. You can't have a blank, right? Blank means somehow the spin worked against you. If I have 3 grapes, right, I get whatever I get times 10. Now you can change these payouts or whatever the way you like, right? If I have 3 bananas, I get, you know, times 20, whatever my player bet times 20, right, and so on. If you notice, even at the very minimum, if I get 2 7s, I still get times 20, right? Otherwise, if it's some other fruit combination, you get your money back, right? So if it's just random fruits that come together, you just get your money. Whatever you bet, you get back. If you get 1 7, just 1 7, you win 5 times your player bet. And then I update my stats and so on, and blah, blah, blah. And then what I do is I have this spin button click event that I use in jQuery to produce this thing. That's how the button works. Okay. Now this can be written in so many different ways, but this is a very basic program. So where do I want you to take this thing? Let me close this up and show you version 2. Like remember, I try and whenever you guys have an assignment, I try and do part of the assignment with you. So my version 2 was this one. I went from that to more of a structured approach to things, right? Still didn't use closure or anything like that. And this is going to say, this is an older version of my code, so it's going to say, hey, do you want to update your TypeScript? And I'm going to say no, which is what you should say if you have an older piece of code. All right, so if I run this thing, this is the first iteration of my code. Right? Bit of sounds in the background. And if you notice, there's a reset button and a power button. So this is the effect of it. All I've done is done exactly what you've asked, plus added some sounds. That's all I've done here. So this, actually, let me just refresh, because I want to make sure this is correct. Sometimes what happens is, yeah, that's my iteration. That's right, that's better. That was more advanced than what I was going to show you. So just remember, I had to cache the memory. Okay, so this one, if you notice, it has these things, but there isn't any, nothing inside the windows here, if you notice, right? And when I press the button, if I want to bet 25, bit of response, right? I click the spin button, and then bananas, right? And I got nothing. If I keep doing that, as long as I have money in the bet and I have enough money of $1,000, I'm going to get different symbols that pop up. And if you notice, the bet line is actually layered above these other symbols here to come down. So it makes it look like it's there behind the window, right? Just as an effect. Very, very simple, right? Guys, this looks easy to you, I know. I want you to try and put a UI to code, right? That's not a moving target or anything like that. I've been losing steadily. Let's bet like $100 and see what happens, right? Lose a little bit faster. There we go. What normally happens, I win. I mean, it messes me up, right? So this is just like a ×1, so I got my money back there. All right, so, oh man, how the hell? I won the jackpot. $50,000. $50,000. Right, that doesn't normally happen. That's like one in like, I think it's one in, I don't know, 450 or something like that. That shouldn't happen, right? Let's reset. That's crazy. That's impossible. See, it always bloody happens this way, right? All right. Anyways, so I'm not going to casino tonight. I swear. All right. I don't care. Reality doesn't really happen. If you think this is how it's really winning, if you ever play a casino game like cars, whatever, go to the casino and think you're going to win, not going to happen. These are it's always just for people who are watching or whatever. It's made for the house to win. Okay. So here's my 1,000. Let's pay 500 twice. So here's my $500. I lose my first, and then let's try it again. Let's try it again. And I have 1,500 credits on. And couple more times. That's insane, right? Okay, hold on. This can't be, I said. Steven, what are you doing? It's your fault. No, I'm not going to no casino. My odds are, okay, come on, lose some. Good, I've lost, no more money. Okay, so now, I bet again, right? Got no money, right? And it pops up this little message because that's the way I had run it before. Do you want to play again? Okay or no? If I press okay, it resets everything back to normal. I can also press the reset button to reset me, right? And I can also press the power button to turn this thing off, like literally just like shut it down, which is, it's a little bit of planning to make this go. So that was my first iteration, and I was like, meh, that's okay, but it really doesn't look like a real game. I mean, it's kind of like rudimentary, yeah. How do you win and lose? The odds inside the thing. Depending on what I spin, depending on the symbols that come down in the window, if they're matching. If I have if there's no blanks, as an example, right? So I don't have any blanks. Same picture, yeah. But it's in the background. That's what I'm saying. So don't worry about what's in the front and the foreground. The foreground, right? What we see in the windows, that's just me programming to come out. So I have to first generate my result in the background. So in my code, I got to generate my result. I know my result, right? I use strings and arrays to do that, right? On the foreground, I take whatever I get from my string and I translate it into an image. I say, okay, look at this image now. Okay, so here's version 3. Actually, I'll go right to version 4. So here's version 4. I took it a little further, right? And this is something that you could easily do. Now I'm using TypeScript, and now I'm using objects, all right, as opposed to how I did it before, right? So let's run this thing now and see the difference, all right? So back to what I was. So now it looks like this. So it's slightly going to be different. Now take a look what you're getting right away. I'm getting half a fruit. Okay, right away you know this is different than it's before. So is this, half a banana. That means that and the way I did that was I used a mask, right? A clipping mask around my containers. Now what I've done is I have 3 containers, Create.js container type objects, right? And I use a clipping mask around them so that it only shows what I need them to show. Everything else is hidden. So I've got fruits that are off screen, just like we had the ocean off screen, that would just flow down as part of the animation effect. Okay, let's see how this works. So I'll press 100. Now there's the animation effect, right? So it looks like more of a realistic slot machine, right? Let's try it again, right? That's a loss because I have a orange and 2 blanks, right? Are you understanding now? Okay, so I got 2 symbols, but I got 1 blank, lost, right? If I have a blank, I lost. That's my rules. You can make your rules, whatever you want. I've approximated this by looking at some other code online and some other slot machines that I've seen to kind of give it an approximation. Lost, lost, lost. This is good. This is what I expected last time. Oh, right? 3 oranges. That's, 3 of a kind. I won $3,000. Well, you get the point. So your job, your mission, right, for this one, whether you choose to accept it or not, right, is to kind of put together your own slot machine in your own way, right? Any questions around this before we start doing it? What I'm going to do is we're going to start building it out today, right? So I'm going to say, how do we create this? Let's take a look at the code. How do I dig down and translate this code, right? Into images. We're gonna edit some images. We're gonna actually let's find an image that works for you in the background. Or some people, I know some people are crazy, right? I'm just gonna put it out there. They find slot machine assets, as an example, from someplace like the Unity Asset Store, right? They got slot machine assets, right? And they take these assets and then they use those, but you have to connect your assets to the back end. That's your code, right? How do we do that? So. So assignment, that's assignment 2 in a nutshell. Again, do week 7 on the Friday at midnight. So that would be like October 30th. We're sitting right now at October 9th. So there's quite a bit of time to get it done, not including the reading weeks. I know everyone's going to be off doing their own thing, playing video games and going out, watching TV or whatever you're going to do, right? Hanging out with friends, no? No? Hanging out with family and stuff like that. I don't know. Stephen, what do you think? No? Hear what? Yay! That's the right answer. But I can't force you, right? All right. So let's stop this video, and then we'll get back and we'll talk about the next piece.